Okay, let's get started. Today we are going to add report regions to New Line Shack. I have that job open as well as the PDF. So let's go ahead and go to the plans and see what structures we need to apply to our takeoff. On the cover sheet itself, we are provided a sheet index, which is perfect, so it'll eliminate a lot of time that we could waste just going to the plans to find out what we need. So let's go look at what is provided in this plan set and see what we could use. Looks like we have a demo plan, a site plan that's mixed with our grading plan, and other than that we have some details that will help us, and looks like our structural plans give us a foundation plan. So in our civils we have a site plan, some details to help us finding those structures on the site plan, and we have a foundation plan. So honestly, with those three sheets we could probably find everything we need for this individual job. So let's go ahead and get to the site plan, which is on C3 or sheet 4. If we jump to sheet 4, we will see our grading plan or site plan that they combine. It's a small job, so typically for these small jobs they will combine the two. We can see some sidewalk outside of the building itself, and a covered open area, so they're calling it. Looks like they also even have a mechanical pad out here and a gravel area. So let's go ahead and go to their perspective details that are provided in each callout. Looks like our sidewalk section will be found on sheet C4, and it'll be detail 2. So if we go to C4 and look at detail 2 right here, it gives us our sidewalk. It looks like our sidewalk would be 4-inch concrete over a 6-inch base. So I'm gonna go ahead and write that down. 4-inch concrete over 6-inch base. And let's go back to our site plan. So we got that structure section. Now let's go on to any other ones that are provided for us right here. So we got that done. We also have this pad, this concrete pad. Looks like it's detail 1 on sheet C4. Now that we are back on sheet C4, let's see detail 1, and this shows us we have a 4-inch concrete pad over a 4-inch base. Now we are seeing a thickened edge section, which we typically do not apply because most of the time this thickened edge is technically negligible if you're looking at the dirt work. So if you add up the volume of the thickened edge itself, it's typically very insignificant in respect to the entirety of the job itself. So honestly, all we're gonna need is this section right here and apply it to the entirety, into the structure itself, the whole structure. So let's go ahead and write that down. So now that we have the sidewalk and that pad, let's see what else we have. Looks like we have a gravel area, but there's no detail or call out for that. So if we don't see it in our plans, we may need to assume that specific thickness of the section. If worse comes to worse. So let's go ahead and get the building itself now. So again, our site plan or civils generally do not give us enough information to find out what the building thickness will be. So many occasions we actually need to dive into our structural plans so that we can find this foundation plan. And on the foundation plan itself, it typically will have the thickness of the building in the plan itself, or it will be offset in a note to the side. And right here looks like they have it in the note. So it says our slab on grade should be 6-inch concrete over a 6-inch fill. We typically don't need to know anything about these. All we need to know is the section itself. All the reinforcements are just extra information that we do not need to know. In terms of our takeoff, it is irrelevant information. So let's go ahead and jot down that our building and our covered area should be a 6-inch concrete over a 6-inch granular fill. So okay, now that we have all of our sections written down, let's go ahead and go to the program itself and go back to entry mode and start applying some report regions. Let me go ahead and get rid of elevations because we are not going to need elevations right now. All of our data entry is in, so we can get that out of the way. Let's go ahead and start entering some report regions. This icon right here will allow us to add a region. It prompts us to type out the region name. We typically start with the thickness of each individual material and then use an underscore and then write out the structure name. So for the building, let's go ahead and put that 6-inch CC, which is concrete, over the 6-inch granular fill. I'm going to abbreviate that to GF so that we don't have a long structure name, and just call that building. Oops, sorry. So we need to apply a section to that, and that section needs to be converted into feet. So since we have a 6-inch concrete over a 6-inch fill, that's a total of 12 inches, which is 1 foot. Now that we have the region and the section all in, we can go ahead and start entering that section. So if I turn on my plus marks, I will be able to actually snap on to the building itself that we already entered in data, and I can actually follow this line if I double click it. Now the only thing you want to be careful with is when you double click the line, you cannot bypass the start point because you will run into some issues. So when I double clicked, I'm going to follow it, and I want to make sure that I do not bypass that bad boy. I had already passed it, so I can go ahead and double click or single click over here on the first point that I started off with, and then right click. Now that entered my report region. Let me go ahead and display some hatch regions, and we can see our first report region that we just entered. If I double click that, you will see the same information that we just typed out: the building, the section itself, and the depth of the section that we applied. What I want to do is actually go into 3D so we can show you what we just did actually. So let me go to land, hit O, so we can move all of our line work, and we can see that if we have our 3D referencing the subgrade with respect to the design, we could see that it's cutting it 1 foot from the design elevation. So if we go back to the design, it looks like our finished floor was up here, but after we remove that material so that we could get to subgrade, we actually get down 1 foot below material. And again, that is per our foundation plan. That is what gave us that information. So let's go ahead and save that and start entering the covered area adjacent to that building. So in entry mode, let's go ahead and start a new region. This has actually the same section as the building, but I'm going to change the building, the structure name, just so that I can match the plan. The plan called it a covered open area for some reason, so I'm going to actually call it covered area to shorten it, or so that it's per plan. But I'm going to take out the open just so that, I don't know, I don't want it to be too large of a name. So let's call it covered area. Again, it's a 1 foot structure. 6 over 6 is 12 inches. Altogether is 1 foot. And go ahead and hit OK. Let's hit that first point. Doesn't really matter where you start, as long as you end in the same point, it should be fine. I'm gonna go around point to point. Notice how my hatching is adjust while I'm in entry mode. That seems to be somewhat of a update. Not a huge fan, but it's not too bad. So there you go. Now that we have it done, that region, I guess, you could see that the top region that I just entered, my covered, what did I call it? Covered area region, is blue, and the first one that I applied, the building itself, is red. Now every new report region will come with a new hatching, and it's good to see the hatchings because it keeps everything segregated. It's cool to see everything with a different color because it's just easier to see what's going on in these areas. So now that I have my building and my covered area in, I can go ahead and add the sidewalk that we found. And it looks like from my notes that the sidewalk they gave it a 4/6 inch section. So in entry mode, I'm gonna start a new region, but this region is going to be a 4-inch concrete over a 6-inch base. I'm not sure what type of base it is. They didn't let us know, so I'm just gonna call it base. And the structure name would be a sidewalk. So now we must convert this 10-inch section into feet for the program, and according to the chart, 10 inches converts into 0.83 feet. So after we add that, we can go ahead and start entering our sidewalk regions. So I just double clicked. I'm gonna go along this line, but like I said earlier, we do not want to bypass this start point, and let me actually show you why we don't want to do that. So I double clicked, and I'm going to intentionally go past the start point just so you can see what ends up happening. So now that I'm going to hit, say, this point for instance, what ended up happening is when it followed my line, instead of going counterclockwise like I intended it to do, it actually went the opposite way because of the fact that I went over my start point. So that's one reason why you don't want to go over your start point. It actually follows it. So if I backtrack, you will see that it is going counterclockwise until you get to where I was entering. So you don't want to go over the start point. I manually click the previous point, and then I select the start point, and then I could double click right after and not have to worry about bypassing my start point. It looks like my region will go all the way over here, but I don't want to actually close it. The program doesn't do well when you have this orientation of the building, so I like to split it up into two pieces. We could stop it at any point. Right here is a perfectly good stopping point. So I'm going to start turning back around so that I can get back to my start point. So I'm going to click all these and start going back. And again, I am only encompassing my sidewalk region right now. Now I have my full sidewalk in. Note how the program readjusts the coloring. I'm not 100% sure of how it does it. I believe it's based off of square footage, and I believe like the largest typically is this red one, and then from there on I'm not 100% sure. But right now what it is at is sidewalk seems to be blue, the covered area is green, and the building is red. So again, I left a gap in my sidewalk. I want to go ahead and enter in that gap. I can manually select the previously entered region, make sure that I have the same sectional depth as before, the 10-inch depth, which is a 0.83 feet or foot, I guess. Hit OK, and I'm gonna go ahead and hit and fill in the gap. Oops, it looks like I forgot a point. I'm gonna backspace, manually click, and note how I have note how I have my snapping function on. It is in options. That is actually necessary so that we have all of our report regions directly on the data lines itself. So now we have all of the sidewalk in. All we need now is to enter the mechanical concrete pad and this gravel area. I don't think we actually found the section for this gravel area, so we're going to assume a 6-inch structure per our assumed sections in our ASM folder. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new region. I'm going to give it a 6-inch AB gravel area. sorry, gravel area. And again, that is assumed. Every time we enter an assumed section, we need to put that at the end of our report region, because it allows the client to know that we actually guessed, to be honest. Based off of all of our previous jobs, this typically is a good average of what the section will be. But if they come back and they tell us that it should be a different section, we could apply that. But it is important that we put the word assumed in the region name if we are assuming that structure depth. So now that I have a 60-inch gravel assumed region, let's go ahead and enter it. And that area should be in this little area, or that region should be covering this little area. And then let's go ahead and add that mechanical pad. And the mechanical pad was, the detail for that pad was on sheet C4, and it was detail 1. I wrote it down, kind of forgot which one it was, so let's actually go back to that detail. And it was sheet C4 detail 1, and it was 4/4. That is correct. So let's go ahead and start a new region. It is a 4-inch concrete over a 4-inch base, and that's just a building pad itself as well, so let's call it a building. And that is an 8-inch section, which converts to a 0.67 foot section. Let's go ahead and apply that and enter my region. I have a closed polyline, so I could actually double click it, right click, and it'll apply that region to that whole data line. So now let's go ahead and check out 3D and see if all of our structures are holding down from our finished grade. So let's go 3D. Ooh, looks like we got something going on here. We can double check that. But our building is getting held down perfectly. Our sidewalk is getting held down perfectly. And this seems to be a issue with our subgrade. If we go design versus design, we can see that our building is actually in perfectly. It's our subgrade that is acting a little bit funny at the line that they are sharing, that is adjacent between the gravel pad and the building pad itself. So if there is no issues with the data entry itself, or with, sorry, the region entry, we could actually just leave it as is. It is a little bit funny, and sometimes we actually could just pull the region back and call it good, but that seems to be okay for now. It is a little bit of a glitch in the program itself, but we're gonna go ahead and call it good. All of our regions are entered, and that should be it for this project. Thank you.